Hi everyone, welcome back to It's All Light. I'm your host, Natalie Bott, and today not only do we have one guest, but two guests. One you might have heard from in a past podcast episode with me, Cole Zesger, and today joining him is his wife, Jocelyn, and I love these two. I think they're lovely. They have so much good advice to share about dating, but also just about life and experiences and relationships. So let's get to know them a little bit. You want to both tell us where you're from a little? What you do?
So I'm from Centerville, Utah. So like northern kinda. And I am a relationship coach on Instagram and TikTok. So if people are going through like breakups or divorces, they like watch videos I make and then I call them and we like help them through that.
Amazing.
And then I am from Draper. I do lash extensions and like aesthetic stuff. So,
and she has
fun.
the best
So
style
like a
too.
tan or like a brow lamination or a lash tint.
Good job, Cole.
Lashes.
No, literally, I need all those things, and Jocelyn is so fun to follow, and she does everything so well. So yes, I'll be posting her contact info if you need any of those services. So we'll kind of start the episode off with I'm calling it Dating December. Usually I had all the episodes of December be on this topic, but I kind of dropped the ball a little bit. So I'm excited to have at least one episode for December. And we've chatted a little bit about this before, just one-on-one, as well as Cole mentioned a little bit of this in his podcast episode. But how did it kind of all begin? Like, Cole, you said that's your line of work, but what brought you there? And Jocelyn, I know you have so many great thoughts too. What's kind of the backstory here?
So the backstory of us getting together, or the backstory of my job,
or your lives? Just
okay.
Give us some context about who you guys are.
So I got married right after getting home from a mission, like you're supposed to do, and we were married for almost 3 years, and then she came home one day and said we were getting divorced. And there, looking back, there were probably a lot of good reasons for it too. Now that I'm in more of a healthy marriage, I can see that there were a lot of things that weren't good, but to me it came like a big surprise. And then I was really sad. So that was February 2021. Then I dated another girl after that for about a year, and then that one ended too. And I just realized that I really wanted to learn about relationship stuff because I didn't want to keep getting really, really hurt all the time. So that's when I read books and went to therapy and watched a lot of YouTube videos and did some courses. And then I kind of just started making videos about it because I really like entrepreneurship stuff. That's my favorite thing ever. Mm-hmm. So I was I'm spending all of my time 9 hours a day learning about breakups and divorce and moving on and stuff like that. So I'll just talk about it. So that's kind of how that started. And that's also how I met Jocelyn. So
I was going to say, Jocelyn, let's hear your story a little bit.
Yeah. So my story, I mean, I feel like I'm pretty passionate about dating and all that kind of stuff, just because from the time I was little, I have loved love. That's my favorite thing in the whole world.
I love love too.
I know, it's the best, right? I'm that's the only thing that matters, I swear. But I feel like I've always just loved love, and the idea of getting married and having a family, that's been my dream. And so my whole life I was kind of just a little boy crazy and just wanted to be in love. And so I had I kind of always had a boyfriend, and then I had a long-term boyfriend for 2.5 years when I was between 18 and 22. And then I actually got married when I was 22 as well. And I was married for 2.5 years. And then that marriage ended. And then I met Cole because he does the TikTok. Mm-hmm. And so I met him because I was watching his TikToks because I had just been going through divorce, and his TikToks were so helpful to me. And I was I need friends and I need people to, talk to about what I've been going through and have people to relate to. And so that's when I reached out to Cole, and went to his ward and met him and stuff. So, and then I met a ton of people who've been divorced. So it was really cool.
Yeah, you need people in your space when you go through something so hard. And yeah, I'm sure you both have gone through so many feelings and emotions. And what has helped you just push through all these experiences? And we'll talk more details later on in the episode, but overall, like, what helped you keep going?
One thing that I think gets forgotten a lot right now, like if you are going through a breakup or a divorce and you're like on Instagram and TikTok looking for advice all the time, because that's what everyone does. Everyone talks about like self-care stuff and how you're supposed to focus on yourself, and I think all that's awesome and like it does work, but one thing that I think gets forgotten, and the thing that made the biggest difference for me, is if you can kind of stop thinking so much about yourself and you can find other people with problems and start trying to help them through theirs, that's one thing that I think makes the pain stop a lot faster. Because like when you're going through a breakup, you pretty much just focus on what the other person's doing and how sad you are. And then everyone online is like, all right, now double down on focusing on you. And usually that just gets people to think more on how sad they are. So one thing that really helped me was just like, I kind of got to cheat because people were calling me about their breakups at the time. So I kind of had to focus on other people.
Be sure I'll talk about breakups and
stuff. Yeah. So you could do that. You could start like a breakup TikTok and have people call you. But like, if you have like something that you care about in the world, like whether it's like kids who don't have friends and you can go and volunteer at like an after school place, or you care about music, you can go teach like guitar or piano, or you care about homelessness and you can go work at like a soup kitchen. Like if there's some way that you can stop thinking about yourself so much, then I think the pain stops quicker.
Yeah, and then it opens new insights on your problems. I was talking about that with my friend, and he's like, well, you can't bring a broken wheelbarrow to a service project. And I was like, why not?
Yeah, you can.
Like it can hold some stuff. I don't know. Even you can't.
You can still do
But
something.
yeah, no, I wholeheartedly agree with that. I think it's so nice to focus on others' problems than your own. And it, in turn, just helps your problem seem lighter, or can even help you navigate through your problem.
Yeah, I want to like one more thing on the wheelbarrow
Yes,
things.
go ahead.
Cool. Like, yeah, if you have your broken wheelbarrow, like most people, if you're not bringing to the service project, they're not fixing their wheelbarrow. They're just like looking at it and being like, "Well, this sucks. It's broken." So like, if you do bring your broken wheelbarrow to the service project, you'll know why it's broken and get to see where you can fix it, and you're actually using it, so you have more motivation to fix it. So. I think your friend's wrong.
No, I agree. It's always good to hear different points of view, and to some extent, it is good to take a bath or self-care.
Yeah.
Go get your eyebrows done, get a spray tan. Spray tans really do just make you feel happy, especially in the winter. It's so depressing. So, I think if I were to give a percentage, I would say maybe 60-40. 60 look outward, 40 help yourself. Like, I think that outward aspect, like you said, Cole, just helps you hurt less as well as just move on quicker. Speaking of moving on, what's your take on how soon to get back out there after a relationship, or just like after being rejected? I know a lot of my friends have expressed just how depressing it is to date, and then they go on a break and they're like, oh, I'm just not going to date. What's your thoughts on that?
I feel like it's kind of a weird thing. So I feel like it's so person to person, and like, I mean, for me, I feel like when I went through my divorce, I kind of tried really hard to see the big picture of like what was going on, and that's like kind of what helped me the most, is just trying to see the big picture and kind of realizing that I had God on my side through my divorce and through that whole thing. And I'm a firm believer that like when we're wronged in a situation, or like something doesn't go our way, like the Lord kind of helps us to find that path a little bit easier than he maybe would if you weren't hurting or had been like mistreated or whatever. I think he kind of at least guided me, I felt like, after my divorce, to kind of know where to go and what path to take to get to that point. And I think like for me, like, I mean, I met Cole in September of last year, and I had gotten my ex and I had separated in June. So we had like separated in June.
It's kind of fast.
It was fast.
I was freaked out.
But there is like also the context of like my marriage was like I had disconnected from my marriage long before it had ended, just in the sense that I was kind of in protect myself mode because my partner is incapable of protecting me mode. So like it was kind of like I was kind of separated from him, and so it was a little bit like I was already detached from that situation a lot, which I think does make a difference, like in how fast you can move on, or like when's the right time to date again, or like if you're healed from a situation. And I feel like I like just kind of tried to pay really close attention to my feelings that I felt after that. Like I was, and I really tried to ask myself like hard questions. And I think when it comes to moving on post breakup or divorce or things like that, like you kind of have to ask yourself, like, if this person came back right now, would I immediately run to them? Would I drop everything and like, you know, just get back with them? Or like, would I be like cautious? Would I not want to like, you know, move forward with that? And I like, before I even started thinking about dating, I had already made up in my mind that if my ex ever wanted to come back, we were never getting back together. Like it was like the door was
like
locked
ever.
shut.
I just saw the Taylor Swift movie and my head is like nonstop Taylor Swift. Sorry.
Yes.
But yeah,
Yes,
so you,
no, I was definitely feeling that.
yeah, you were listening to your feelings. That is something that is so hard to do. And it's so funny. You think you should just know what you're feeling, but it's sometimes doesn't feel that way, or it just feels overcomplicated. But I love that you said you just kind of had made up your mind, and then that helped you there, like springboard you to move on to the future.
Yeah. Yeah, that definitely helped a lot. And I think like, I mean, it also just kind of ended up to where like I'm a firm believer everything happens for a reason, and Heavenly Father has a plan for all of us. And so I think like in my mind, like if I would have told myself at that time, like in July of last year, that like a couple months later I would meet the person that I was going to marry, like I would be like, no, like that's not going to happen, you weirdo. But it just like, I feel like Heavenly Father is just kind of like, this is what's happening. This is where your life is going. Like, this is where I'm leading you kind of thing. And so like, I just kind of like leaned into what, like kind of day by day, like what I was feeling. Like, I'm like, what do I feel like I need to do to progress forward today? And something that was really interesting that I actually learned in therapy, I think is like really helpful when it comes to healing post breakup or divorce is, and like helps you to eventually move on, was my therapist talks about the balance between like change and what is it? Acceptance and change. Yeah. The balance between acceptance and change. And so she said like accepting looks like you are kind of doing the self-care things, taking care of your like self, and kind of feeling like, okay, I am gonna like today I feel like I just need to accept where I'm at right now. And so I'm just gonna read my books. I'm just gonna take a bath. I'm gonna, you know, like study. I'm gonna journal. I'm gonna do the things that make me feel okay. And like some days you feel like you just need that. Like you just need to be like, I need to just accept where I am. Change sounds like overwhelming right now. So we're just gonna accept that this is where I'm at. I'm gonna do everything I can to just feel comfort in this moment. And that's kind of more like your comfort. And then when it comes to the change, like because I felt so like I felt so like disappointed in myself and kind of stressed out, because I was like, I feel like I'm wallowing in self-pity when I need to be moving forward. I need to be progressing. Like I need to be like, you know, getting my life in order. I'm like 25. I need to like get my life figured out. And so I like at that point with the change is kind of when you're like, what can I do to make my life better? Like, what can I do to improve? Like, these are more like, I would say this is more of like the challenge element. Like at least it was like I challenged myself to go country swing dancing by myself, which was terrifying. But like, I just like, that was like one way to change. I was like, hey, I'm getting back into the social scene. This is like one way I'm going to change today. And then I did that, ended up having a blast and just like loved it afterwards. And so I think like there are certain days where you're going to feel like you need to just feel comforted and you need to just feel like at peace. And those are the days that you accept it. But then you also have to balance it out with the same amount of change just when you're feeling like you can. And that was something that like got me to the point where I felt like I could finally like move forward and feel confident in moving forward.
Would you say they're pretty 50-50?
I think so. And I also think that as time goes on, like I think the acceptance is kind of up here at the beginning. So you kind of have like very top, and then at the bottom is kind of where the change is. And then
Yeah.
over time, they kind of start to meet in the middle, and then you might be somewhere here in the middle where change and acceptance are the same. And then I think over time, the change kind of starts to outweigh the acceptance. Like I think you just
you
get to the
have
point where
yeah.
like
Sorry.
you're just like you're like, okay, I feel like good with myself. Like I still want to do the self-care, but it's not like I don't need to be like soothing myself as much as I did before. Now I can really like push forward. And as you have those experiences of change and like see that they're positive, the more change you want to implement. Like I think taking those first couple of challenges towards the change category is really hard. And then as you do it more and more, it's like, this is empowering. This is like awesome. Like I'm feeling really good about this, you know? So it's kind of like, I think it just kind of balances it out that way over time.
I love that. I think I've been thinking about just like the acceptance thing, and like so many people are like with any struggle in life, they're like, okay, maybe you just need to sit with it and like feel the feelings. And I think sometimes if we just distract and push away our feelings, we're not really accepting it, right? We're pushing it away. So I love that. That's kind of the first thing to recognize, as well as like not beat yourself up for being in that spot. Cole, I'm sure you've had to talk people through that quite a bit, right?
Yeah. Yeah, my favorite way to kind of think about it, it's the same thing as what she said, but I kind of use this analogy to remember it, is I view like moving on and getting through the grief as crossing a river, and there's two like crappy ways you can cross the river and one good way. So the two crappy ways, the first one is if you just sit on the bank and hope it goes away. And that's like the people who are just like, okay, I'm just going to go to the gym like 8 hours a day now and like overdo what we were talking about earlier and only do service projects. And I'm just going to like pretend that I'm not sad. And I've done that one and it doesn't really work. Like it works for a little bit, and like you might like be able to bench more by the end. So that's kind of cool. But like then it it builds up. And if you do start dating too soon before you do handle any of that, it's going to like destroy your next relationship because it builds up, and then you're having all these problems connecting to other people because you're pushing people away and you don't know why. It's because you didn't handle any of the feelings before across the river. So that's the first crappy way, is if you just sit on the bank and pretend like it's not real. The other crappy way is if you just jump in the river and drown. And a lot of people do that too. That's where you're just like, you just sit in your bed and you don't eat and you don't work anymore. And you just think about how sad you are. And that's it. And like, you can't talk to anyone about anything unless it includes your breakup or your divorce. And everybody slowly gets sick of hearing from you. And you just drown in the river. So that people do that too. And that doesn't work either, because like, if all you're doing is accepting it over and over and over again, there's nowhere to go. You just are sad. You're looking at your broken wheelbarrow and you're just like, well, the dang. So like, that's the other crappy way. The good way is to walk into the river, and then when it starts to feel like it's too much, then you can stop and feel it and feel sad. But then like, have prepared things in your life that you can go and do after you're feeling sad. So what that would look like, without imagining this hypothetical river, because you're not actually going through one, is like, if you're feeling sad, go in your room and cry, but have a list on your phone of things you can do after, like things you enjoy doing. Like you can play guitar, or go and get better at fishing, or go and get a spray tan from Jocelyn. The links in the below. And then like you can journal about your sadness. You can feel all of it, but make sure that you're doing things also. And then eventually you get past the river, because you built enough stuff and you also felt it. So when you're on the other side, that's when Jocelyn was saying like, it's more the change and you're just actually living in that change now.
Yeah, it's kind of a snowball, those actionable items you were saying too, Jocelyn. So that's the first step. You're changing, you're accepting. Now I call it the fun part. It's like you both were getting out there, meeting new people. Jocelyn, you were bold and you were like, hey, can I come to church with you? I need new friends. Cole was smitten at first sight.
I was.
I heard that story at your guys' wedding and I loved it. So what then? Like, I feel like people, I don't know, it takes so much to get to that point. And when it does, like, how do you recognize it? Because I feel like maybe some people are just like, oh, I have fun with the same group of friends and that's about it. Maybe go on a few mutual Hinge dates every once in a while, but nothing changes. So I'm just going to go back to my friends that are fun, yet none of us date. And I feel like that's a big problem. And so what are like actionable steps, and what was different this time having been in other relationships than when you met each other? Jocelyn, do you want to tell us a little bit about that?
Yeah, I think that like I feel like the biggest thing was my kind of mindset going into dating post divorce. I think like which I feel like I kind of got a little cheat code because once you've been married before, I feel like you have this like unlocked sense of like life that you don't really know unless you've been married. And
What is it?
I just feel like you know how it is to be married. So like you kind
Okay.
of you have an idea of like marriage and like what it's like. Because I feel like before you just kind of like imagine what it could be like, or like
Right.
you just really have no idea. And
Or it's
so
like
it's just kind of
marriage is
more
hard, but what does that mean? Yeah.
yeah, and it's like more exciting and you're like, oh, this is amazing. But I feel like post divorce, like I kind of like I've told Cole this before, but it's like I had different things that I was looking for. Like I was extremely intentional with my like list of things that I needed from a person moving forward. And I feel like that's like one of the most important things I think is to have like a list. I remember forever ago somebody told me a story of how they like made a list of things that they need in their relationship and things that they will not tolerate. And it was like they had 5 things on the things they need, and you can have as many as you want, but like I feel like the more kind of concise, the easier will be to find someone, because he's like you don't want to have like 50 things on your list and then be like, oh well, no one fits this.
Literally
like,
reading a book about that right now. I can tell you about it in a minute. It's so great. Okay, keep going.
so I feel like I wrote down the list. I wrote down 10 things that I needed from like my future husband. Like I was like, these are 10 things that I need that I didn't have in past relationships that like were detrimental to my like past relationships / marriages. And so I feel like that's like the number one thing that I went into. Like I was extremely intentional moving forward into dating again. Like I was like, I am like, for lack of a better way to say it, I am tired of like dealing with bull crap. Like I will not put up with the games. I won't put up with like drama. I won't put up with like, I don't know, just immaturity. So I was like, I'm not going to put up with these things that are so like, I don't know, just people play games and it's hard because it's like dating is such a game and you just feel like you're gambling and it's like, it's just like so stressful. But like I just kind of went into it with the mindset of like, I am going to just be myself. I'm going to find who I am, be myself, and then I am going to make sure that nobody changes who I am. I'm going to be who I am, and I'm going to stick to what I have decided is important for me. And then I'm not going to be with somebody who doesn't fit into that like mold.
Because I
think like, sorry, go ahead.
We all want to find someone who like makes us feel like our best self, right? Okay, continue. Sorry.
Yeah, and I think like the one thing that I kind of learned that I feel like was like one of the most valuable things I learned is like the things that I thought were the most important in like a marriage or relationship, like before I got married the first time, like looking back, I'm like, I cannot believe I thought that was what's important. I can't believe that was what I was like looking for, or like, and then like with Cole, I like was looking for a completely different set of things. Like I was like, these are the things that are important to me. Like it's like, this is what I am wanting in a person. And so it just like kind of changed and made it so I was like looking for a completely different type of person. And I also felt like I was a different type of person. So like I wasn't the type of person that was attracting the type of people that I attracted before. And so then I attracted Cole, and he was like, he had the requirements that I had on my list and a lot more that I didn't have on my list. So it was like a very good situation. And so dating him, it was just not dramatic or anything. And it's like, it was very, very nice.
Did it feel natural?
Yeah, it did. And I feel like with both of us, like having had like shared experiences kind of, I mean, with like the past, like having both been divorced and stuff, that was like, I think at least very healing for me to feel like I was with somebody who could understand me better than like pretty much anyone could. So I feel like it was definitely like very different and just a lot better for sure.
Nice. Cole, I want to hear your side too, but I have one more question for Jocelyn. So when people say like marriage takes work, like what does that look like? Like in this relationship with Cole, like what has that looked like for you with maybe your expectations or your changed perspective on it? And I'm assuming that's made it easier, but what advice would you have for people in that spot?
I feel like in the past I spent a lot of time trying to like control people and to do things like that. And I feel like I spent just so much time controlling and trying to make sure people weren't hurting me and all of this stuff. And it felt like I always had people tell me like, oh, marriage is hard, you know, like you just like push through and like marriage is hard. And I was like, yeah, okay, like this is what everyone says, this is what they're talking about.
Mm-hmm.
And then after my divorce and like just feeling kind of the relief from that marriage ending and like getting into my marriage with Cole, it's like our marriage is still difficult sometimes. Like we bicker and we like have disagreements for sure, and it's not perfect all the time.
I'm weird about cat litter.
Yeah.
I have all these weird rules about like random things that I learned when I was like 7 about parasites you get from it. So
So we have random bickerings, but
yeah,
like overall, like I think that like overall, I feel like we're a team, like more than like, I mean, in past relationships, it felt like it was very much like me against my spouse. And also there were problems that were happening. So it was like, there was just like World War III. Like
that's hard.
we're not on a team. And then there's these horrible things happening. So it's just like, just a mess. Whereas like with Cole, like we'll bicker and fight and sometimes not be on the same team, but ultimately like we'll kind of come back around and be like, okay, we're on the same team. Like
best interest at heart.
Yeah, and I don't think marriage is ever going to be easy, but it's like I do believe that marriage is easier than people make it out to be. Like I think like it's capable of being easier than people make you think. And so like coming from being in a marriage that was very, very difficult to being in a marriage that is not very difficult, it's like that idea of marriage being hard is true because there are hard things in life. But I don't think like the marriage itself should be hard. Like I think
you should both want it.
Yeah, like you should both be wanting to be together. And
I think that's like applicable. Like if you're dating someone and it is extremely hard to figure out if you like just like each other, and like it's like a lot of people can think this will be fixed if we're married.
Nothing's fixed when you're married, by the way. It just gets worse. So it's like if things are bad when you're dating, they will get worse.
And better, both. It just gets it gets more amplified because you have more emotions tied to it and you're with each other more often.
And you're committed. Like it's like at least for our religious purposes, it's like
more.
It's it. Yeah. Interesting. Cole, what are your thoughts? Just I kind of lost where we were going with it. So just what's on your mind?
Is my topic like how do you know like I thought it was interesting for the people who are just dating and they're not sure if they like want to get in a relationship. I want to talk about that part. Also the part about the list. Those are my 2 thoughts.
Yeah. Well, also just like what's the problem with dating? Why are people not dating with what you have to say as well?
Okay. So one, I think that me and Jocelyn both have a personality that we are relationship people and we like to be in them. So I think that makes it easier. I don't think everyone's like that. I think especially if you get like into your like later 20s and 30s, you kind of know how to not be with someone now. Like you're good on your own.
Yeah.
And I think for a lot of people, it's too scary to give that up to risk being in a relationship because a relationship is different. You do have less autonomy.
It's work
than
and
if you're
could not work out.
Yeah, and it's scary. So I think that's one question. Like if you're finding it hard to get in one, I would think that probably a lot of it is like some sort of fear that you have of giving up what you already have. And you okay? So that's the first thing. I would think like, do you actually want to be in one?
Yeah.
Like, do you actually want to give up the things that you have being single? Because there's some things that are like beneficial about being single.
Totally.
And I don't think if you're like honest with yourself, that might be the reason why you're not able to find a relationship because you don't totally all the way want to. So that's the first thing. Second thing is with the lists and not making them too long. I've made a really long list before, and I think that it's kind of silly to think that you know what you want enough to make like a list, because you've probably only like seriously dated like, I don't know, like maybe 5 people if you're like crazy good at getting relationships in your 20s. So you don't really know what you want. Like, you haven't met all the people. There's going to be people that are like better at connecting with you than you even knew was available. And there's going to be people that are funnier than you even knew was like doable. And people who are like more driven and more interesting and admirable than you even knew was around. So if you're making this box just based off of your understanding that you have in your 20s, it's probably a really shallow box. And the person that you really like may be outside of that box, and you won't be able to find them because you've made the box. So I think like with the list, the things that should be on there are things that you can be sure about, like values. Like I want someone who is like as into becoming like Jesus Christ as I am. Like that's something that you can be sure about. That's something that you don't think will change about you. I want somebody that also wants to have kids. Like that's something that I feel like doesn't change as much with people. But like brown hair or likes anime or like things like that, like I think they're cool, but it's dangerous to write people off if they don't fit those things, because you don't even know all the amazing that people are.
Yeah, that's true. So what helps you be open-minded to that? To
Realizing that you don't know. And I think meeting lots of people, like I think it's really good to go on tons of dates. I generally like, I'm one of the people that if I meet someone I really like, I'll only date them. But like maybe if you could kind of tone that down, if you have that same quality as me, and just be like, I'm gonna try my best to date as many people as possible to just like see what the world is like. I think that's how you get to know what it's like, is going out and seeing.
I like that. I feel like something I've observed is guys generally know whether they're into a girl or not kind of right off the bat, whereas some girls like maybe give it a chance. Or I gave a guy like a few years ago like 12 dates because like he was awesome, he had good conversations, but just like tried to kiss me, and I swore like it was not it, right? And I'm like, okay, like what's the difference there? And
do we get the controversial thing Peyton was talking about?
Controversial thing.
Okay, this is interesting, and
love
it
it.
might be true, it might not, but like from the guys I've talked to about it, all of them agree. And this is kind of how I think about it too.
Oh, I know what you're talking about.
Okay, cool. Is it okay?
Yeah, that's fine.
Okay, so basically, like from me and my friends talking, this is like cool doctrine, but basically we think that for a guy to be attracted to a girl, they have to be physically attracted first, and then the girl's personality can build on top of that, but it can never replace it. Like if you meet a girl who's like amazing and like has the coolest personality ever, but you don't all the way find her attractive, it can't make up for it for a guy. Attraction has to come first, and then it can, like, the personality can bring her above a 10 and you can totally fall in love with her and she becomes more attractive at that point, but it has to be there at first. But as I talk to women and ask them the same thing, they say that the attraction is really important, but the personality can kind of replace it.
Totally.
And like, if you're not all the way attracted, but then the guy's like awesome and caring and kind, it can change and he can become attractive. But from the guys I've talked to, that's not the same. Like it's kind of a prerequisite that stays.
Do you think it's good for people, like sometimes it's just like, I'm not feeling it, and sometimes you really don't know the reasoning, but do you think like for yourself you should put reasoning into why you're not feeling it with someone?
What do you mean put reasoning? Like figure out why?
Yeah.
Is
that helpful? Or if you're not feeling it, just trust that gut instinct and move forward?
I think it can be helpful.
I think it can. I think it depends. Like if it's a pattern and you are suddenly not interested in anyone every single time you become official or meet their parents, then like I'd look into like attachment styles and say maybe I have an avoidant attachment style. Maybe I'm afraid of getting close to people. But if there's not a pattern and like you've shown yourself that you can get close to people and now you're just suddenly not interested in this guy and you don't know why, maybe you're just not.
Yeah. Well, I think too, like there can be like an important like part of that where it's like dating a lot of different people lets you kind of figure out what things you like. Cause like I've dated people before where like I had no idea like, oh, I actually really like that about that person. Like I'm going to search for that in the next person, but like this didn't work for this person. But like I think kind of like building upon like, that's like where you get your experience from. Like that's where you get like, what's a priority to me, you know? And like going along with what Cole said about the girl thing, like I feel like it's totally true with like me, because like I've dated guys that are total goober looking dudes, but they have like the best personalities ever, and so like they just like are all of a sudden a 10.5 and you're like what? But like I think that like it's definitely like it's worth figuring out like kind of what is the problem. But I mean, if you like, I think it is when you can't pinpoint it that's when there's a problem. Like it's like with you, like if you're like, oh, why do I not feel this way? There's nothing I can pinpoint. Like I can't pinpoint anything. Like maybe it's time to kind of evaluate where you're at and like what's important to you, and kind of be like, do I have healing to do to be able to date somebody? Because am I just sabotaging things? Like, was this a good situation? Like I think it is important to evaluate like to that point. But it's like if you do find out, like let's say you go on a date with a guy or a girl and they like have a certain type of humor. They're like really sarcastic and funny. And you're like, oh, I love that. Like, I didn't realize I liked that type of humor. Or like you can kind of be like, I really love that about that person, but they just like kind of were like mean about other people a little bit. And I didn't really like that. So that was like where the disconnect was. So it's like, you can kind of grab from like, I don't know, at least for me, I feel like I like over time kind of grabbed things that I liked from other people and held on to them. And we're like, okay, these things I'm hoping to find in somebody else. But there's going to be somebody who has all of those things. Like you can kind of pull and be like, I'm gonna put this in my little, you know, dating pack for later for like what I want to find. And then like kind of that's like where your list kind of comes from of like, these things are important to me. These are like things that I'm compatible with. And so I think that get there.
And you think it's possible? You think you can find all the things you're looking for?
I think to a certain extent, like I think the most important ones you absolutely can. Like I think that like there are no perfect people. Like it's like these people that I read about in like romance novels and stuff that are like these perfect people, you know. It's like that's not realistic. It's like that's fiction. But I do think like to a certain point you can find the majority of the things that you need. Like it's like maybe like there's one thing you're like, okay, this is a little bit goofy about them, but like this is still fine. Like it's
like a secondary thing you can get over.
You know, like Cole's litter thing and his distaste for cats sometimes.
No, I like cats.
Yeah, he likes cats, but like not as much as me.
Well, I don't think anybody likes him as much as you know. That's but I bought a litter robot, so it's like you can work around it.
Yeah, you can work around it. Yeah.
Around. So it's like Cole doesn't love cats as much as I do. And that was a requirement on my list. I wanted somebody who liked my cat because my ex-husband.
I love Gizmo. Cat, so. I do love him. It's just I don't like let him sleep on my head and stuff.
Yeah.
Yeah, I remember asking my best friend and her husband, like me and my best friend are best friends for so many reasons, but we also have a lot of the same passions and we could talk on end forever. And so like we love Harry Potter and her husband hasn't even like finished any of the books, you know? And I was like, is that ever annoying? She's like, not at all. And he's like, it's so good to have different things we both love. And I'm like, that's great. And he's like, then it's not boring. There's always something interesting. And
that's a thing too that's like
really cool.
A big thing I've struggled with in the past is like trying to force all of my like interests on my partner too, because I'm like a very hobby person. Like I really like the things that I like, so I'm like they should like them too. And I found that if you try to do that, like if she tried to like make him like Harry Potter, usually all you get is like just a more mediocre version of the person that you're already with.
Like a version of you, like you kind of just get a clone of yourself, but like a less
if it even
version.
Worked. But usually you don't you can't do it. Like usually they come pre-packaged with all of these different hobbies, and that's what makes them beautiful and attractive and amazing. And if you try to shove yours on it, it usually doesn't even get to the point where it clones yourself. It usually just obscures the things that make them awesome, and you just get a less good version of them.
I feel like it's ideal when you have your things and your partner has their things, and you both can help each other shine in those ways and just be supportive.
Yeah, that's the thing. I actually noticed. My mom tells me all the time that I'm a chameleon, which is like, she's like, this is like a good thing about you, but also not. But she's like, throughout my whole life, with all the guys I've dated and stuff, there's only been like one, maybe two people that I haven't felt like I had to like just chameleon into them. But like certain relationships,
Am I one of those?
Yes.
Okay. Cool.
But like I was in a relationship for 2.5 years, and this guy was obsessed with sports. Like he loved sports. I am not a sports person. They're not my thing. But he was obsessed with them. And so I went to every Jazz game under the sun for the entire 2.5 years. And I did end up liking basketball and stuff. But then like I just kind of had to make that my whole personality. Did kind of lost my personality in that relationship. And by the end of it, like when we broke up, I was like, I don't really even care that much about basketball. Like I was like, I just kind of felt like I had to, because this was his entire personality.
Right.
And so I just kind of chameleoned to be who he needed me to be. And then I didn't feel like I was myself.
Was being yourself. Yeah.
And then like I kind of learned that in my first marriage. Like I learned like how to be more myself. And like I think like with my marriage, he was more of a person that was a lot more compatible with me. We were far too similar. We were extremely similar, which I think is part of the reason that our marriage didn't work out. But like I think that kind of taught me a little bit about not doing that. And then with Cole, like he has a lot of hobbies that he, I think, does want me to participate in that I don't want to, like dirt biking, for example. I do not like dirt biking. It's not something I like to do. Four-wheeling, I would totally do, but like dirt biking is scary.
And for the record, she's never even tried it, so
I have been on a dirt bike.
Oh, you have? Oh, yeah. Well, on the back of me, that's not very fun.
Okay, but anyway, so like, but like he wants me to dirt bike and stuff, and I've kind of focused in our marriage on like, who am I? Like, what do I love? Like, what are the things that I love? Which I love reading, I love baking, I love cooking, I love playing
cake decorating. Piano. Like, you're so good.
I love cake decorating. I love like kind of just more like granny things, but like that's kind of like where my passion is. Like I just love like kind of building a home and like doing these kinds of things, which like I think that Cole gets a better version of me because I am true to myself. And like if like I've kind of gotten to the point too where I feel a sense of security in our relationship, and not saying this would ever happen, but like I feel like I have my own autonomy enough that if something bad were to happen to Cole, or like we were to get a divorce, not that that would ever happen, but like if that were to happen, I would have my own self. Like I feel like I'm true to myself, which I think is like something that is so important in dating, like making sure that you are true to yourself and who you want to be. Like I just think that's one thing I regret so much, is just kind of being that chameleon of like, I will just become who you need me to be. And then because I'm a very easygoing person when it comes to that kind of stuff. Like I'm kind of down for hanging out, doing whatever most of the time. Like, and I think as I've gotten older and learned more, I've just gotten to the point where I'm like, no, I want to do the things that I love. Like this is my life too. I'm not living for another person, or like just because you're married or in a relationship, you don't have to live for that person and do what they need you to do. It's like you're also a person. And so I think that like that might be common sense to a lot of people, but for me that was kind of a revelation of like, wow, I can do my own things and I don't have to like cater to somebody else entirely and, you know, change my entire personality to be with them.
With that being said, I remember at your wedding, I think one of the speeches one of your parents gave, it was also that like when you and Cole met, like you were also just like so focused on each other. And like, I think you always have to do a few things. I mean, obviously enjoy spending time together, but like sometimes that was like doing what Cole wanted to do, and sometimes Cole does what you want to do. So it's like you have to accept that as well, but also just continue to support each other. And I feel like you guys do a great job at that. And I think part of that comes from because of your own autonomy, right? And you're true to who you are, yet you can love and support and grow with each other.
Yeah, for sure.
Okay, so from this whole episode, as well as just what do you think would be an uplifting takeaway that you think people should know, especially young single adults looking to get married? What's your last takeaway?
I think it's really worth it. One of my favorite explanations of it is from Jordan Peterson, that I really like listening to him, but he talks about like, why would you ever want to get married? And the reason he gives, which is probably not uplifting, but I think it's awesome, and I'll turn it uplifting, is he says that what you do is you're imperfect and you find another person who's imperfect, and then you shackle yourselves together. And the reason why is, if you don't shackle yourselves together, most people would eventually get sick of the imperfections and leave. And also, if you get sick of someone trying to correct you and make you grow, you're going to leave. So you find two imperfect person, you make it so you can't leave, and then you're forced to grow together. And because of that, you're able to become way better than you could ever become if you were not shackled to someone, because you have someone constantly helping you grow and showing you where you can grow, and you can't leave them. So I think that's a really cool way to think about marriage, but it's also the most fun and rewarding thing ever to know that you have a secure person that will always love you, that you can always come back to, and you can have the confidence to go out and change the world because you know that you have a stable person that, if you fail, will still be there with you. So those are two reasons I love being married to Jocelyn.
I love that. What about you, Jocelyn?
I feel like the number one thing I would like tell people who are kind of in the dating scene and kind of trying to find someone to marry is just like there are going to be dark times, and there are going to be times when it feels like you are just in the depths of despair, and like I have been there and it is not fun. But like I just have come to know, like, for myself, that nothing that is meant for you is going to pass you by. And like if you just do the things that make you happy and try to better yourself every single day, like that will come to you. Like you will be led to what you're supposed to be led to, and it will be way better than you could ever imagine. And like, I mean, it happens way quicker a lot of times than you even imagine. Like I remember feeling like I was in absolute purgatory like a year and a half ago, and just felt like life was never going to improve, and I wasn't going to get married or have kids for 5 or 10 years, and it was just, I was doomed. And then like a year and a half later, like here I am, like happy, like not feeling like I am going to die every day. And so I just think that it happens a lot quicker than you think if you do the things like trust in God's timing, trust in like what you know, and like just improve yourself, and just, I don't know, do the things that you know help you to feel better, and you'll be guided to where you're supposed to end up.
I love that. I love all your thoughts. It's fun to hear your comments, and good to know that they're coming from like you've lived through it. You know, like your comments have so much credibility, and your advice as well. And I appreciate your guys' example. You can find them. I'll post their Instagrams. You also started one together called Divorce Saints, right? Where you kind of do what Cole does, but more zeroed in, more niche for the people who've been divorced and what that's like. And I can't imagine going through something like that, but I love seeing that has a good ending, and like people find their endings. Like you said, Jocelyn, it all kind of goes where it needs to go and happens how it needs to happen. So thank you both so much for all your thoughts, and you can find more of their thoughts on their Instagrams. You can see Jocelyn's talented hobbies as well, because I love following her. She posts the best book reviews, has the cutest aesthetic, does her hot yoga. It's awesome. And then, yeah, Cole's content is always so profound. Like you can tell he's put in the work for what he's talking about, and that's really impressive as well. So you guys are wonderful. I'm happy I know you, and I hope you guys enjoyed today's episode. We'll talk to you next week. Bye.